Hello and welcome to Frankenstein's podcast, where it's all about the monster. We're a creature feature podcast about monsters and why we love them. I'm one of your hosts, Joe Praska.
And I'm your other host, Khalid Hussein.
A.K.A. Nappy Gilmore.
Yeah.
And Khalid today, and Khalid and everybody else listening, we're joined by a couple of special guests today. I'm really excited. We're joined by writer and director Travis Milloy, who wrote the 2009 sci-fi horror film Pandorum and wrote and directed the 2016 sci-fi thriller Infinity Chamber. Welcome, Travis.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
We're also joined by Coleman Taylor, who's worked as a coordinator at Legacy Effects for a number of years and now serves in a more creative development capacity. Welcome, Cole.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us.
Before we jump into anything specific, you guys, we have, like, I think I mentioned this off air, but we have some regular guest questions, and this is going to be a big one. I think you guys, I'm excited for what you come up with. But our general first guest question is all of pop culture. You go like movies, books, TV shows. What is your favorite monster? And then which one do you think is the scariest, if it's not the same?
Cole, you want to take that first?
Well, I mean, I can definitely say I have an affinity for Frankenstein just because I think Bride of Frankenstein is one of the finest sequels ever made. And also definitely one of the most emotionally... there's something that resounds about the emotion of his confusion and things like that. So that's definitely... There's something about him that I find incredibly tragic. And the scariest... That I'm going to need a second on. Travis, if you want to take over for a second.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I don't know if this qualifies, but it has to be Jaws for me. As far as a monster movie goes, just because that movie had such a huge impact on me. It's the reason why I wanted to get into movie making, and just the stories of the disaster of trying to create that mechanical shark and them having to try to reinvent the wheel to do it. So that definitely has to be my number one. And then, but I think I'd have to go with John Carpenter's The Thing.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, just because of the, all of the great practical effects. But when I saw that movie, it just blew me through the wall. I thought that was just amazing, and it scared the hell out of me.
Often, to me, some of the scariest monsters are just humans to me, whether that's Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs or Norman Bates, or even Jane Doe in The Autopsy of Jane Doe. There is something that I think is inherently terrifying about a human monster. But boy, Jaws, that's a great answer, Travis.
All right. Does that qualify, guys, as far as your show goes for movie creatures?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
No, definitely.
Yeah. Thing's a good choice too. We just did The Thing on an episode recently. I think, Khalid, that was your first time seeing The Thing, right?
It was my first time seeing it, and then because it was still so fresh in my mind, watching Pandorum, I definitely got Thing vibes. So, I'm picking up on
influence was
your
clear.
love of it. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
There's also some great, I hate to call him a monster, but one of my favorite movies of all time is The Elephant Man. And it's unfortunate how he's seen as a monster in society, and how he scares people when he, going back to, the Frankenstein monster, he's just a tragically misunderstood, actual character.
Yeah.
Those are always the coolest monsters, definitely. The ones where it's very much like, it's what it brings out in the others, and like how they react to it is like the real story. I love those.
Yeah. Amen.
Agreed. Yeah. And then the other question that we tend to ask people, Khalid and I always sort of think that everyone's kind of a geek about something, no matter, whatever that be for you. What's kind of like your big fandom, or what do you consider yourself a geek about? Like you're something that you're just really into, or always have been into, or like to talk about, dig into?
Well, for me, I'm a total fanboy when it comes to famous movie locations. I'm a nut with it, and I drive my wife crazy. So wherever we go, whatever city I'm in or whatever country I'm in, I have to go find specific movie locations, and like, wow, it was right here. It was right here where it took place. And like, I've dragged my wife. Like one Sunday afternoon, I drove her out to the location where they filmed the finale of Seven. The dirt road along the power towers, and I was like, oh, here it is, right here. Okay. So like, that's the thing that I really I totally geek out about.
Honestly, movies in general for me, it's, I'm still that guy that still buys Blu-rays and things because I like owning a movie. And, I love old posters of classic films and things like that. And then on a probably really dorky level, and I mentioned this to Travis earlier, I've always had this soft spot for the Ninja Turtles. I don't know why. I'm not kidding. I got a big old sideshow collectible Ninja Turtle right behind me as I'm speaking.
No explanation needed, man. The Ninja Turtles are just bomb.
That's
the explanation.
Perfect.
That's so awesome.
Travis, I didn't know that you went to locations like that. I've kind of gotten into a kick on that before, too. My dad and I were really obsessed with this really great book called Hollywood Kryptonite, which was about George Reeves, who played Superman on TV.
Oh, yeah.
And we ended up going to visit his house off of Benedict Canyon one day when my dad was in town. And it's like one of the few houses on that street that really hasn't been modernized or changed. And we had this really eerie reaction to it. And when we got back to my place, my dad looked at the book and we had gone it was something like 50 years to the day we happened to be there when it happened.
Oh, wow.
So there's this weird, spiritual element to it that was kind of unnerving.
Wow. He killed himself there, right?
Yes, that's the story, but read the book and you'll debate that.
Let's see. Oh, gotcha. Yeah, sorry to go off on a side loop here, but I give all my friends the death tour of Hollywood. I go bring them to all the locations, whether it's Charles Manson or O.J. Simpson or Bugsy Siegel, or I know where all those murder scenes or crime scenes took place. And I knew about the George Reeves place, but I haven't actually found it or went and found it. But yeah, that's another one of my movie locations and murder scenes. I find.
The death tour.
Yeah.
Have you been to the Museum of Death in Hollywood?
I have not. I've heard about it though.
Yeah, I haven't either.
It's as intense as it sounds, but it's kind of cool actually. The weird thing though is that nobody knows what the decorum is in those places, so everybody just kind of awkwardly walks around like it's a real time funeral session.
Nice.
It was okay. Quick side story for me. I went with my friend and we were looking around and we got to. Unfortunately, it was the section of old timey child deaths or whatever, and
Right.
the reason was because they used to bury people weird, especially kids. Where I guess for some reason they thought it would make more sense for them to be buried with their eyes sewn open.
Oh.
So I see one, it kind of freaks me out. I nudge my friend. He turns around and sees it, and without skipping a beat, just out loud in this morbidly quiet place, goes, "Oh my God, that's a dead baby." And
oh my!
It took everything in me to not laugh right there.
That's a riot.
Yeah, it's hard to justify laughing at a dead baby.
Yeah,
right. Yeah, it's not that I'm laughing at, just the whole ridiculousness of it all.
Oh.
I kind of want to just do that now if I'm in the middle of a grocery store. Oh my God, that's a dead baby.
I'll tell you, it's a neck turner. People will.
Oh, that's good.
Amazing.
Definitely some unique answers for us here.
Hey,
I like it. So for people listening, we're going to talk a little bit about Pandorum, the 2009 movie. Khalid and I think both just rewatched it last night. I've watched it a few times, but I really, really, really like the movie. But one of the things that I wanted to kind of ask you about is kind of the process of script to screen. So I know you did the writing for it, and I've actually kind of read some places that you had the script was quite a bit different when you first came up with it, but from what it came out as the movie. And I know from talking to you in the past that when you did Infinity Chamber later on, you had a lot more creative control there. But with Pandorum, it was a bigger studio production. What's when there's that bigger studio element, what gets changed and what compromises do you have to make? And is there anything that you kind of I wish I wouldn't have made that compromise?
Yeah, for sure. It was an interesting journey with that script. Kind of a long story short, I came out to Hollywood in the 90s, and I was making a living as a writer. I had a really great agent at the time, and he signed me to a deal at Warner Brothers. So I was working on big high concept scripts, and but nothing was getting produced. I didn't really understand. I was a little bit naive. I didn't understand the politics of Hollywood and how much politics there is involved. But out of spite, I wrote Pandorum. And because I was so tired, I was trying so hard to please studio executives and directors and all that kind of stuff. I wasn't writing what I truly believed in. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to write a script that no one's going to read. I'm just going to write it for me. I'm going to write it as an audience member. I'm going to write the scariest movie I can think of. And after some exploration, I kind of came on the idea of Pandorum, which was, mine was, the original draft was much more Robinson Crusoe in space. It was a guy, there was no dialogue for like the first half hour. It was a guy who woke up on a ship all by himself. There was no power. All he had was a flashlight and no memory of the flight or who he was. So it was his journey through this maze of this massive ship to realize what the ship was and what he was a part of. So it was, and then the first guy he encountered was a guy who didn't speak English. So it was very Robinson Crusoe. It was very dark. But I really went down, like, I'm going to write the scariest stuff I can possibly imagine, the most claustrophobic nightmare stuff, the most violent, most horrific things that I could do. So, and then I thought, there's no way anyone would ever produce this movie because it was so dark and so brutal. I was really surprised when Impact got involved that they liked it. So I was like, oh, but of course, the first thing that they said was, man, that is some of the most horrific stuff I've ever read. We have to take that out. So I was like, oh, okay. I mean, it was like, you know, it was the tribes that ran around the ship. They would cannibalize and gang rape at the same time. I mean, it was like the most horrific stuff. Yeah, even Jeremy Bolt said, listen, I've read a lot of scary scripts, but that is the most disturbing page I've ever read in a script. You have to take that sequence out. So anyway, that was the first eye opener of, okay, if they're going to spend this much money and it's going to be this big of a project, that we have to meet in the middle. We have to tame some things down and elevate other things, etc. So it was a great learning experience, though, to be part of that project.
That's so fascinating. I'm also kind of curious, like when you first wrote that, like what when you pictured the kind of the creatures, the monsters, like how different do they look from what they kind of came to in screen?
You know, it was actually pretty close. Mine, but the one big difference in what I was writing was we didn't know they were monsters until more towards the end. That he thought that these were passengers, because originally the script, it was a prisoner ship. It was bringing 50,000 prisoners of the Earth's worst criminals to a distant planet prison. So Bauer was one of the only non-prisoners within the story. That was one of the big changes that we did, that me and Christian did. Because Christian Albert was writing, when he read my script, he fell out of his chair because it was so similar to a project that he was writing about colonization and a ship of hope that Earth had run out of resources. And so that was his, we like melded the scripts together, which was, you know, it was a good move to elevate the project because mine was so dark. And I mean, it was really kind of an escape from New York in space. It was the worst of humanity that I could think of. And it was great working with him to elevate the script that way. One thing, I don't know if you guys, know, the interesting thing was, like I said, I wrote it out of spite, and I was like, I'm not going to let anybody read this. I don't want my agent or any producers to read it. I'm going to go shoot this thing for really low money. So I started making the movie on about a $200,000 budget.
Oh wow!
And we were going to film in an abandoned paper mill, and it was going to be no-name actors. It was going to be my roommate was going to star in it. It was going to shoot it all on video. So we were literally getting ready to shoot the movie when my agent called and said, hold on, somebody's interested in it, somebody big, like who's willing to spend some money on this thing. And I didn't really believe him. I was like jaded at the moment. I was like, yeah, whatever. I'm going to just keep making my little movie, my little home movie, and you guys just let me know. And finally he was like, no, seriously, you have to stop what you're doing. Stop what you're doing. And I was like, okay. So that was yeah, that was kind of the birth of it. But one other thing just to note, just from a writer's perspective, for the writers out there, I did it in a bit of an unorthodox way. Normally, when you write, you have an outline and you do a breakdown, so you know where you're going or what the structure is or where you intend to go. With Pandorum, I did completely what I'd never done before. I had no idea where it was going. So from page one, I wanted to write like an audience member. I didn't know what was around the next corner. I didn't know what was going to happen. And that's why I gave Bauer no memory. That way, I only knew as much as he did as we ventured into the story. And usually you paint yourself in a corner when you do that, because then you get to a certain part and like, I don't know how to make this work. So I literally didn't know what the ending was. I knew nothing. And I wrote right up to the scene where Nadia and Bauer look out the window to see where the ship is. And I literally stopped in the mid-sentence. I had no idea what to do. And I took my dog for a walk. It was at night. And I was looking up at this. It sounds corny, but I was looking up at the stars. And I was thinking, okay, now where could they be? They could be in a spin. They could be in deep space. They could be a black hole. Who knows? And my dog was drinking out of a puddle in the street. And I thought, wait a minute. Okay, that's about as opposite as you can get. So I went home and I literally finished that sentence and then made the ship underwater and that whole thing. Spoiler alert with the ending. But it worked with what I was trying to do. So that was an interesting. And the other thing is, sorry, you guys got me rolling here, but the thing that I learned in that process was I realized that I was finally writing what I believed in. All before that, I was trying to appease somebody else. I was trying to appease a producer or a director or try to go for a certain demographic or try to make these things fit. And Pandorum was the first time I was like, I'm just going to write for myself. And I realized that's what you have to do all the time. Even if you're hired to write a project, you have to write what you believe in. You can't expect someone else to believe in something that you don't. So that was a massive light bulb moment for me as a writer. And after that, and because I'd worked as a writer for so long, and suddenly Pandorum just took off so quick. And I was like, well, why is that? And it was like, because I wrote a movie that I wanted to see. It's something I believe in.
And I've said to you a number of times, Travis, I love that ending. I love that ending. It's like the angel of Rod Serling came down and just like tapped you on the head and was like, no, that's what you do.
That ending really does bring it together. It's very well done. And like I usually can guess certain things with like even like these like it's not like twistier stories. But yeah, you really had us like live in Ben Foster's character's like mindset of like, we don't know what's going on. Anything is possible. For a second, I thought it might be a simulation when Dennis Quaid like locks his younger self up by tricking him with like thinking it's the ejection sequence, but it's a simulation. I was like, is this like a breadcrumb? So sure. That was I don't know if it was intentional or not, but that was a good red herring because I did not expect that they were already on Tanis.
Well, see, and I think it was that process that worked because I think if I would have known the ending, then subconsciously I would have guided that way, that the hints and clues would have been clearer and whatever. So I think it was because it was that very spontaneous, very organic moment of realizing what ending I wanted to go to is what I think is what made it work. And then, a quick story is originally the ending was different, but we did a test screening and we got really low scores. It was interesting. We got low scores in America, but really high scores in Europe. But the distributors said, we don't care about Europe. American, we need these scores higher. And my ending was a lot darker. It was only Bauer and Nadia that made it to the surface. And in the end, we cut back to Dennis Quaid and show that he survived and that he's going to kind of take his become ruler of the ship and the kingdom that he started with. So it was very dark, bleak. And then when the scores came in, they said we got to do something different, but we can't shoot. We can't spend a lot of money. And I was waiting in line to get on a plane with the producers, and I said, well, you could have the computer malfunction and launch all of the pods. So like a bunch of people make it. And I remember, I'll never forget, they were like, that's the stupidest idea I've ever heard. And I was like, okay. And then about a month later, they called me and said, actually, we're going to do that. That was a good idea. Because we can do that.
Works.
we can do that inexpensively. We don't have to reshoot with talent. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So that's how that came about. But and just to get into the creature thing, and Cole, if you can touch base on this, the one thing I know that they really did an amazing effort of those creatures being practical. I mean, they really went the extra mile with creating the actual prosthetics for all those guys, and those actors worked really hard in how they maneuvered and how they moved and all that kind of stuff. Like, they went the extra mile of not having any CG involved with those creatures. Is that true, Cole? Am I correct with that?
As far as I know, so I ended up joining with Legacy shortly after Pandorum had shot. But I know that first off, I think creature performers don't get enough credit for what. I don't know if any of you have ever been under prosthetics or foam or anything like that, but it's exhausting, and these people really have to perform in a way that you're half the time you can't see, or you're sweating and you're drinking through an eye hole because you can't take anything off. You can't go to the bathroom. So anytime that people do that, I think it's really a testament to the dedication of A, the performers, and B, the filmmakers wanting to make something practical. But from my understanding, yeah, it was, contact lenses and all this makeup, and it really was kept in this very grounded sense. And I remember when I first started working there was stuff coming back from Germany. And so there were all these weird alien bodies just taking up the shop floor. I was like, what the hell are these things? Like they're like milky eyed and missing noses, and like, what the hell is this? And but definitely, I know that I was speaking with Shane Mahan, one of the owners, earlier, and he was saying the thing that was really great about it is they all had a lot of fun on that one because the crew was very tight. And they were sort of doing it almost like this international mix. They had, some local students and some local artists and, people that have gone on to do some great stuff as far as I know. And it was sort of this great melding of different countries' effects teams. Still led under, at that time, Stan Winston. But it was this like great opportunity to bring in other people and other talents, which was, as far as I've known, I never met Stan, but that was something that I had always heard about him, and the gents, as I call them, the four owners of Legacy, are very much the same way. So I know that they look back fondly on that because it was really a unique creature feature at the time. In this world of Marvel and DC and all that stuff, it was this unique little monster movie.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I'll tell you, when they first drove, I got to go when they were shooting in Babelsberg Studio, and this guy gave me a tour, which was really interesting. Babelsberg is one of the oldest film studios in the world, and some of the sound stages were built by the Nazis. And when the wall fell, Russia took it over for a while, and then things changed when the wall fell. But they pointed out those brick sound stages were built for the Nazis to shoot propaganda films. It was amazing to see. But wow! So he drove me through this huge studio, and all of these people are working, and I was like, "Wow, this is like." Yeah, it's happening here. And then he told me, well, these people are all working on Pandorum. I was like, all of these people? I mean, like this, like hundreds and hundreds, of people. I was like, wow, I didn't realize it was that big of an operation. But yeah, the creature stuff was phenomenal. I mean, I know that they worked a lot harder than I think most people think when compared to other similar films that have creatures that way. They really went the extra mile.
When you're trying to squeeze a lot out with an original film like that, and obviously comparatively, yes, it's a big budget, but it's not Disney money per se, as I would call it. And so it's amazing the way to see these artists that they're so well aware of how to pull off an effect shot for so cheap that it's really interesting to see these ways they can make something out of nothing. And I think it really does take a special type of artist. I mean, for example, all the artists under the roof at Legacy, I don't care what segment or what group they're in, whether you're a modeler or a painter or a mold maker or whatever, they're all so incredibly talented at what they do that they have to come together on everything. And everybody's got their own process, and everybody's got their own inspiration, and everybody's got their own thoughts. But when push comes to shove, they'll get you out of a jam. They'll know how to make something work, even if all you have is a paper bag.
Right. That's for sure. And just going back on what you mentioned, Cole, about how difficult it is for those creature performers. how much of a nightmare that can be. I know that just one little tidbit is the lead hunter in Pandorum was played by a guy named Andre Hennick. I'm probably murdering his last name, but he's a great German actor. And I think because of all the discomfort and pain they put him through, he is actually in the movie. He plays the captain of the ship when they show Gallo's experience on the bridge.
Oh, that is kind of a cool fact. Wow.
Yeah.
So I think it was a little bit of a reward. Like, since you're going to be wearing this crap for all this, go through all this misery, at least we'll put them in the movie.
I always like that when you see somebody who's usually in like prosthetics get to play themselves. We watched a Star Trek episode recently where Doug Jones's character gets to be human for a while, and it's just like a fun way to showcase that, like, on top of everything they do in prosthetics, they're good actors too.
Oh yeah. And can we please get Doug Jones an honorary Oscar or something?
Yes,
for his
yes.
Like, not even honorary, just like give him the Oscar.
He deserves it.
Yes. he is to me, the equivalent of Andy Serkis with motion capture. You know what I mean? Nobody does it like Doug Jones. And I mean, his job is not easy. And I don't care if that's Star Trek, a commercial, Shape of Water. His job is not easy.
No, he does what we do in stilts. It's wild.
Oh man. Yeah.
Travis,
he's incredible.
I had a question. It's interesting about what you said about you and Christian's ideas kind of merging. I was wondering, because it sounds like yours, at least initial story, was a lot about Bauer just like uncovering the mystery. At what point did Dennis Quaid's character, Lieutenant Peyton, come into it? Because he was a very, very interesting thread to it all. And obviously the namesake of the movie is like what he's experiencing.
Yeah, that was one of the first things as well. Besides removing all the horrific stuff I had in there, was we cannot have 30 minutes of silence. And we need Bauer to team up with someone very quickly and get this story going. So that was like the challenge that was presented to me, like how to do this differently. Well, I still wanted Bauer by himself as he ventured out into the ship. So then the idea of Peyton, of having these two characters and then separate them so that we have them communicate through the radio, and we have kind of a fatherly figure who actually secretly holds the key, the answer to everything that has happened. So that's kind of how that came about. And it was my own just writer challenge of how to do something interesting with a guy who's stuck in a room. What else to do with the character besides just have him on the radio and be this supportive voice and all this kind of stuff. Then came in his own psychology of what was happening and what the truth about him was. And then basically an alter ego, him talking to a voice in his head, which was the younger version of himself. So that just kind of, it was just when I was kind of forced into a corner of how to make this interesting, how to make this character's story interesting on its own.
That's awesome, because that's another instance in the movie of like the twist like really, really working, because even he doesn't realize it. So
right.
Like it's not until like they start like fighting that like you start to put the pieces together as an audience. And I don't know, I just thought that was a really cool way to deliver it, because you guys are selling this idea of, I mean, I guess the closest like analog I have for Pandorum is like Sea Madness, or at least what I've like heard of Sea Madness, where it's like guys that have spent like months on end on a submarine and like just snapped.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. That's actually a great perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. There's one interesting story from that was when I was on the set and when Dennis Quaid was there, they shot him out real quick in the beginning. But I was sitting on the floor while they were filming, and he was sitting at the console, and they were going through his scenes and all that kind of stuff. And there was one part he didn't agree with the dialogue, or he didn't understand the dialogue. He was like, "Yeah, I just don't get this part. I don't understand, this line." And he was talking to Christian. Christian said, "Can you chime in here?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." So I just talked to him about it. I go, well, what don't you like? And he's like, "Well, I don't know. Maybe it's the structure of the sentence." And I was like, with the joke and that part and this part, and I don't know. And I was like, all right, no problem. So I just whipped out a notebook and I wrote new dialogue for him. And then he looked at it and he was like, "Yeah, that's good." And then they shot it. and then that ended up in the movie, and I was like, that's so weird, so real, that I basically kind of pulled that out of my ass, just sitting there, and then it's in the movie. So that was a funny experience.
That's really cool.
The mother of invention.
Yeah.
I'm kind of interested, kind of on the other side of that coin. Like Travis, you were mentioning, like the creatures kind of looked similar to what you had in your head. But like Cole, if maybe you could jump in on this, like if you're working with Legacy, for example, and you get a creature design or some sort of creature from a script that you're supposed to adapt. Like, how much consultation do you guys have with the writers, or like the imagination, like who kind of came up with the storyline, or do you have a lot of, depending on the story, do you have more free reign with like what you can create, or how does that work?
It really depends on the project, honestly, and it depends on what studio is it. It depends on, is it IP that's based on something, and the toy companies are going to be involved. So it's dictated project per project. Sometimes you will get a film where the art director has already hired somebody to do preliminary designs, and they're either happy with those and they want to push forward with them, but maybe bring them into a 3D world, or they don't really know and they want to see options. So that often depends, and usually those involved in that are the producers and the director mainly. But then when you deal with, like a master like a Guillermo del Toro, whether it's Pacific Rim or Shape of Water, he knows exactly what he's going for. And he's probably worked with a number of artists that he trusts by that point for months, if not years on it, before he even brings it to you. And that doesn't mean our artists don't have a chance to try some things, but he's going to have a very clear idea of what he's looking for, and very sharp-witted in the sense of saying, like, no, that's not what I'm thinking, or yes, that's exactly what I'm thinking. And occasionally there have been some projects that I thought some of our artists, I thought their work was absolutely stunning, and yet for some reason, some were higher up the ladder. It just didn't gel with either the studio or the company or even the toy company. And so it's a very bizarre sort of thing. I wish I could attest to how that went down with Travis. Were you involved on the design process during Pandorum?
No. They had me doing rewrites and all that kind of stuff, but not in that aspect. I mean, the only thing that I remember adding was that it was a creature that looked inhuman, but then when you kind of broke it down, you realized this was a human that evolved in the wrong way. And that was the fact that the enzyme that they had that they carried in their bodies was going to allow them to adapt to Tanis, to the planet they were going to. But because they've been released and generations of them have lived inside the ship, that they've adapted to the ship. So it's been this odd mutation of what would have been the perfect human for Tanis is now this beast that has adapted to the ship by accident.
Right.
So that is, I mean, but that's pretty broad, but that was my
but you know what, you can pull stuff from that. And when I was coordinating still, one of the key things that I had to do was basically do effects breakdowns on the scripts for a number of projects. And I would often try to at least create my Excel document to keep as much of the writer's words there as possible. Even if that was going to change, it was always like, well, they really described it as this. Obviously, there's going to be other conversations that are going to happen. There's going to be changes to be made, but this is what it's described at. And I don't know if that's because I have, like, I love the integrity of the written word or whatever, or the writer itself. But I would always try to make sure my notes reflected what the writer was actually putting to paper.
That makes sense. And that you being a writer, it must have come from that, having respect for that.
That's probably true. That makes sense.
Okay, guys. Well, I have a creature question for Cole then. Cole, what can you give us an example of something that turned out way better than you imagined on screen, or something that was more of a disaster than what you thought it would be?
I remember not thinking much was going to come of the ice giants in Thor, the first one. And as they started sculpting the makeups and things like that, I was like, oh, yeah, this is kind of cool. And then as they started suiting these actors up, you're like, it's kind of cool. I don't know. Is it going to work? Like, I don't know. It felt a little goofy to me at the time. And then I remember going to the crew screening, and I was like, that movie's dope. That was great. Love that. Obviously, these frost giants. Brana knew what he was doing, and so that I remember that one in particular. I do remember being a little disappointed by how dark the visuals in Cowboys and Aliens were. Because I felt like there was a lot of great puppeted stuff that ended up, and I'm sure for valid reasons, but ended up on the cutting room floor, or I felt like you couldn't see it quite as clearly. And so I remember that being a little disappointing, that one. But something about the Frost Giants in particular, I remember going, I don't know. And then just being really impressed by it. So
that's awesome.
That's so cool that you say that. I didn't know that you worked on that, but I rewatched Thor not too long ago, and I remember thinking, like, just now being more in tune to creature design and like monsters and everything with this podcast, and just being that kind of a passion of mine and something I like. I was like, Thor has some cool creature designs. I had noted that. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, but and granted, I was only there. I mean, at that point, I was probably only there like 2 years, and of course, the younger you are, the bigger opinions you have, and I just remember going, I just come on, Thor, really, and the Frost Giants, and I ended up like I felt like a kid. I was like, all right, I'm getting Thor bed sheets and Thor underwear and Thor action figures.
I love
it. So it really goes to show that I didn't know what the hell I was talking about. But so that one really stuck. And then sometimes there are things that are done where you're like, this is going to look cool. And then when you see it, you're like, yep, knew it was going to look cool. Like Real Steel. We did some great puppets for Real Steel. You just knew while it was happening, you see the artist putting it together. You see the puppeteers working on it. You're like, this is just going to look great. Like there's no denying it. And I stand by that to this day. I think that movie is about 10 years old now. And most of the effects work in that movie is still pretty top notch.
Did you always want to get into like creature effects, at least as far as like your adult career is concerned, or like where did that start for you? Because that's very interesting.
So that's a good question. So for me, I was always a huge fan of Stan Winston as a kid. Huge fan. I'm sure partially because of Jurassic Park. I was that perfect age when that movie came out. And to this day, I've never seen a movie in theaters more times than I did that summer of '93. That was essentially my Star Wars. And, I had this making of Jurassic Park book that was really popular at the time. And little did I know that, a bunch of people in that book I was going to end up knowing later in my life.
Wow.
But what ended up happening was as I was looking for work, I had just come off this little independent film that I was involved in. And, of course, the recession hit at that time. So it was right smack dab in the middle of 2008. And I was just looking for any effing job I could find, and to the point where I was like, all right, I'll be a telemarketer if I have to. And at that point, I started reaching out to like, well, what are places that I always thought would be fun to work at? And because I always did have this love for practical effects, there was Stan Winston Studio, there was the Henson Workshop, there were a few places like that. And I knew that Stan had just passed away recently, but I was like, I don't know, are they still working? Like, I don't even know what they're doing. And so I just called them up one day and was like, hey, listen, I just produced something and I'm looking to get involved on sort of an admin level or something because I'd really love to learn practical effects because I didn't really know outside of that Jurassic Park book. I really didn't know anything about them. And Lindell, who's still there and she's a doll, she was like, well, yeah, they might be looking for somebody soon. I'll send you an application, fill it out. I was like, okay. So I did that and sent it off, and I got like good word back, like, yeah, I think they're interested because they're looking for a coordinator and an assistant. And do you want to come down for an interview? I was like, yeah, sure. So I remember walking in there and I see Iron Man in the lobby and I was like, oh my God, I want to work here so bad.
What a sentence. I see Iron Man in the lobby.
Right? And it took a bit of time. If I recall, it was like probably another month later and they ended up hiring me and I came down there. At the time, I never thought that I would have, because at the end of this year, it'll be 13 years that I've been with them now. And wow. I never would have thought, that I was going to be there that long. I thought, this will be a great learning experience. I'll get to know some people and then I'll move on and do something else. And it really did. It taught me a great deal. And I never expected to move into any sort of creative form with them, let alone be there this long. And so it was a really kind of, it's been a strange sort of turn of events because not in particular. Practical effects was not necessarily my main goal. Writing and stuff was always my main goal. And it's just amazing how I think the passion of the people in that building and the owners is very intoxicating. And
yes,
it kind of, despite where cynicism can be an issue in this industry, as we all well know, there is undeniable passion in every artist there, and the owners there, and the coordinators there, and all that, and it just kind of fuels you more and more. And it's been one of the greatest experiences of my life working with these guys.
And I gotta add, you guys, it's the true magic factory. Going in there and meeting and getting to know Shane Mahan, who's a legend. I mean, and just walking through into your guys' shop. That's why I totally geek fanboyed you guys. I'd always like call and ask for help and just want to come over and talk to you guys just so I could be around that place. It's just truly amazing.
I mean, dude, look, I get it. Honest to God, I still get to geek out over what these artists pull off. I mean, you could start one day and you'll see someone sculpting a big old block of clay, and then you come back out, a day later, and it's this creature that they're going to start creating effects out of. And that never gets old, ever.
Yeah.
Like, it's always exciting to see. Whatever the project is, I don't care if it's a project I couldn't personally care less about. When you see what they pull off, it's inspiring.
You know what, you guys, I think you guys might really find this fascinating, but in talking with Cole about what the film industry has been going through and discovering CG and experimenting with it, and now this trend of going back to practical and this battle, the battle between practical and CG. And Cole, you were telling me that there is kind of this wave going back to that.
That's certainly what it feels like to me. Yeah.
And why do you think that is? Because certain directors are leading that front?
I really do. You have to attribute to these heavy hitters, whether it's a James Gunn or a Del Toro or, these people that really want anything in camera as much as possible, because we kind of come from that era. And obviously CG is necessary and it's amazing work. And what I was talking with Travis about earlier was, I do feel like there is this sort of pendulum swing where I feel like shortly after Thor and Cowboys and Aliens and all that, it felt like it was going really digital for a while. And now I feel like in the last couple of years, it's been really swinging back. And I honestly attribute that to things like Guardians of the Galaxy or even the first Suicide Squad, or, they did a lot of practical stuff, or, especially a filmmaker like Del Toro, who, I mean, that's his, that's a guy that, from what I understand, started in makeup effects. And to want to, do something as unique as Shape of Water and have that creature be like about as classic a form of practical effects as can be, that just brings it back into the eye line of the audience, and honestly, another huge one has been Baby Yoda for us, or I know that's not his proper name, but that easily could have been for a CG character, but someone like Favreau, who, if you trace his work, his films, has always been a big, he's always pushed for practical effects. That thing for us became such an enormous milestone for us as a company. And, I'm willing to bet it wouldn't happen without the likes of someone like Jon Favreau. Because, and this is another thing I was saying to Travis earlier, there were times when we were bidding certain projects where they would come in and you would have a certain type of producer that was so used to having like these $60 million, $70 million post budgets. So paying for something marginally expensive up front in production was like, well, wait, why are we paying for that now? And we'll just do it later. And it gave them like a sticker shock, even though it's probably going to cost more without it in the end. It didn't make sense to them to spend that kind of money up front when they were going to be spending that money in post. And I feel like even that is shifting a bit more. I think there's a lot of producers that are starting to come in that realize that if you marry these two things, that's the best thing you could do. And to the credit of the gents at Legacy, they're the first. They're not these guys that are, it's practical or nothing. They know they'll be the first to tell you when they think something is going to be better achieved with CG or with a marrying of both. And I think that's important too.
And that's what takes the true artist to know which tool to use.
Right.
Speaking from like an audience perspective too, I think especially like with me and like Joe's generation, where like a lot of the stuff we came up with was like the early 2000s. There's a media literacy to our generation where we just like grew up with like understanding practical versus CG when we see it, and there's definitely like a yearning or a craving for more practical effects these days, just because as much as CG has evolved, so has practical effects work. So it's even more impressive now when we get an opportunity to see it unfold.
Yeah,
I couldn't agree with you more.
It's so cool to hear you talk about like the effect shops and all that, and how like there's just like this true excitement. And I think you mentioned earlier you're a big Blu-ray collector. I am too, and I love the extra features where you see like the creature design, and I always like how excited they are about all these processes. And it's so nice to hear that that's confirmed, that excitement's authentic. I love that.
It really is. And I also think, these are people that don't get enough credit, much like the creature performers. I don't think these people get enough credit. So when they have an opportunity to actually discuss the hard work they've done and the artistic work they've done, it's hard for that to not be sort of infectious, to be excited. You're like, yeah, I mean, a lot of this stuff, either goes undiscussed or it goes, ignored completely. And when they get a chance to actually talk about what they're passionate about, it fills you with passion.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool to hear. I had noted when I was rewatching Pandorum the other night that, like, speaking of the creature performers, like not wearing the makeup, and they have like the creatures have kind of like a culture in the movie. Like there's intelligence there. They use tools. They have traps. They wear clothing. But like the one scene that sticks out to me is towards the end when the hunter and one of the characters have this fight scene where he like tosses the spear to the other guy, and they have this fight. So like not only are they acting with this like the creature makeup on, but also they have to perform stunts and like a fight scene with it. Like it's so impressive and so cool. And that's one thing I loved about the movie too. Like there was just some really cool action elements too. Like all the characters were very capable and were able to fight, and it just added to the threat in a sense too, like how capable they were. But that was just an amazing sequence to me. I really like that.
Oh, right on. I remember somebody, some critic giving guff about when the creature throws him a weapon. And it was so funny. There was such a negative response about, well, wait a minute, aren't these supposed to be mindless killing machines? Like, wait a minute, like he can do this for sport. Like there's personality in the creature, and I was like, well, I think that's what makes it so cool.
Yeah, I like
interesting. And that they have children, and that there's a hierarchy. That this is a tribe. It's just a very vicious tribe.
There's a lot of world building to it too, where like I'm forgetting his name off top, but the Vietnamese guy, like I gotta assume he's like that world's version of Batman, where this guy has just been causing trouble for these monsters for God knows how long, and
right.
When the leader gets to like go up against him, there probably was like a begrudging respect of like, all right, like we're 5 times stronger than like any one of you, so if you made it this far, let's see what you really got.
Right, exactly. Yeah, no, it's good stuff. And then the child creature that surprised them, that was Christian's daughter, the director's daughter.
So I heard that. That's really cool. Yeah. It's a cool fact.
I think that was one of the first art pieces I ever saw, design pieces, when I started working for Legacy, was the child.
Oh, really?
And yeah, and I remember seeing it and I was like, ew. I don't know what this is, but my God.
That's awesome.
So cool. As far as like you've mentioned a lot of like cool sci-fi and horror stuff that you guys have worked on at Legacy. Is there anything outside of the genre that they've ever asked you guys to create? Like just like some weird thing for a rom-com or something?
Oh yeah, we've done. We did stuff for Ridiculous 6, which is the Sandler movie, where like Harvey Keitel gets his head hit off with a shovel. I think I've actually never seen it, but there was some stuff there, so that we did stuff like that. I know long before my time, they did some stuff for another Sandler project, You Don't Mess with the Zohan, and another Sandler project. We did some stuff for The Do-Over. I don't know if you guys saw that one. But there's a very, very naked older lady at the end of it, and we did some stuff to enhance that.
That's awesome.
And definitely, I heard a funny story. I wasn't there for this, so I don't know how accurate it is. But there's this sort of threesome scene in that movie, and at one point, there's a pair of testicles hanging over David Spade's face. And I heard a story. I forget who told me this, but he was sitting in Video Village and apparently was just dreading this scene. And he goes walking on the set and he goes, "Oh my God, it's a puppet." He thought there was actually like apparently a naked guy there that he was going to be sitting under, and we crafted this, this fake body or whatever. And,
respect to him that he was going to go through with that, though.
No kidding. Because I would have noped out if I read that in the script. Like, nope, sorry guys, I don't know how you're planning on pulling that off.
Come on.
Right? Yeah, exactly. No, but commendably, that is something that I appreciate. But it is amazing, and that was another thing that I learned. There were a number of those projects where I was like, oh wow, I never would have thought that they would spend the money on something like that just to make it right, or for a comedy like that. And so yeah, definitely that definitely happens. And, we get a lot of commercial work, and, we have one of the owners, Alan, really spearheaded the commercial work back in the Stan days. And some of that can be hilarious. Some of it can be epic, whether it's a Halo commercial or it's, you name it. It's, the Aflac duck has been a thing of ours for a long time. And,
wow.
So so it's real, it is kind of funny how different things are that come through the doors of that shop.
Wow. And and I don't know if I'm allowed to, because it's kind of, if it's confidential or not, but there's a life-size statue of Kristen Stewart in the conference room. What is that from?
Wait, from Zathura?
Yeah, from Zathura. You're right. I don't know if
that's what it is. That's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, because she's frozen, and that was that thing. I don't know if. We definitely had that thing for a long time. I come to think of it, I haven't seen it in a while, so I don't know what happened to it. But
I'm not even kidding. I just recently saw that movie for the first time, and then I randomly Googled what happened to the Kristen Stewart statue, and there was already like a Reddit discussion thread about it, and it was just God. It was this one guy just repeatedly trying to defend asking the question to begin with, going, guys, I don't want the statue. I just saw the movie. There's nothing like creepy about this, I promise. And it was so funny.
That reminds me, wasn't Shane Mahan, wasn't he the creature in Zathura? And they did an actual creature, and then they removed the top half of his body with a green suit.
I know that's how they pulled that off, and I don't recall. I can tell you a creature Shane definitely was, and he's definitely the pig lizard in Galaxy Quest.
I don't know, really.
I'm telling you guys, got to get.
My coworker Damon actually has this milled out model of Shane in the position he was going to have to be in order to maneuver that pig lizard.
Oh my God.
We'll place it in funny places, but I can only imagine what he went through that day, being crouched over like that, and you got someone like Tim Allen throwing rocks at you because of the scene. Again, back to creature performers, man. They go through it.
Just another day. Job.
And then Shane was also, when the first Terminator, when the Terminator walked, he was the guy carrying the rig to give it walk, to make it seem like it had a human stride to it.
That was which I always kind of found interesting, just to kind of hook it back to Pandorum a little bit, is that around the time, from what I understand, when Stan passed away, it was basically, Pandorum, Terminator Salvation, and all that. And I remember thinking how surreal and bittersweet it must have been to be on the set of another Terminator after all this time, where their careers were essentially defined by something like Terminator. And to be back on that set, and then you lose your maestro, you know what I mean? And that goes back to what Shane had said about why Pandorum was bittersweet, because it really is. It was like the end of an era, and Pandorum was one of the last films of that era.
That's interesting.
Wow.
Yeah, I watched the movie and then was surprised that it came out in 2009, just because it feels like such a throwback. So that's a very good point.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. And in fact, that's one thing I always liked about Pandorum a lot, is I felt like around the time a lot of sci-fi things were really looking like iPods and, Mac-based stuff. And Pandorum, it took it back to like Alien and Blade Runner, and, this gritty blend of both those worlds, kind of.
Yeah, it's got a really cool aesthetic in general. I think you mentioned earlier, I really like the labyrinth element, like the maze piece to it. And just like all, like the creature design too is just a lot of fun. Like for me, when I was watching it, it kind of gave me like the vibe of like the orcs from Lord of the Rings, but like if they were able to like just be so much more unhinged. And so I
right.
I thought that was just a lot of fun because I feel like that'd be a fascinating Lord of the Rings version to see too.
Oh, right.
Lord of the Rings in space.
Yeah.
Well, the time when I was there, the sets were amazing too. I mean, they did these amazing. I mean, they really and then they shot in an abandoned power plant. That whole sequence where he goes down to reset the reactor and stuff, like that was like the real deal with some dressing. Some of those sets were just unbelievable. So,
I think it was actually that sequence where there's all the dead creatures in the pit. I think that's what I came across on the floor of the shop when I first saw it. I was like, because it was all the dead body versions, and what the hell?
It was like Monster Orgy. Yeah, that was
exactly.
Oh,
so I want to ask, and I think I've actually, Travis, I may have asked you this in the past. For the people listening, I've interviewed you for Twin Cities Geek before, and we actually connected a long time ago when you were first making Infinity Chamber. It was called Somnio, and I got to see a screener of it way back then. So that was a really cool connection to make then, and it's fun that we've been able to keep it up. But I think I asked you this before. You had plans for like a trilogy of movies, I think, right? With Pandorum, like different stories to kind of bookend this one. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was definitely a thing of discussion, and then obviously, it's dictated by its financial success.
Right.
But we had the plan, in case it did work and it was successful. What else could I create out of that story wise? So I started writing some other scripts. One was a prequel, which showed the young Gallo character of his whole reign of taking over the ship and becoming this ruler. And then a character that he went up against, and it was. I mean, you think about it. You have 900 years of stories on that ship.
Yeah.
Of people waking up. I mean, like Bauer was just kind of like one of the stories of somebody waking up, like what is going on and trying to find their way through this thing and trying to figure it out. It's like, well, you have 50,000 opportunities of different passengers waking up at different times along the way. And there was a story that actually, one of the scripts was one that took place during the Pandorum story, and that the characters crisscrossed. Like the protagonist in this other story was hiding when Bauer and the others went by, and he saw them go by. And when the reactor turned on, that was a big turning point in his story and all this kind of stuff. So there was all these other stories. And then there was also a sequel about the settlers arriving at Tanis and what they discovered there. That there was already tribes inhabiting that planet that were battling over these two different religious beliefs. And the twist was those came from Peyton on the ship.
Wow.
So
I want to see that.
I do too. That sounds awesome.
Well, and then we did, because the movie didn't succeed financially, so those were kind of scrapped. But then I did work for a while on a cable series that was going to be based off the movie it was a combination. It was interesting. I took those two scripts and I combined them where I had a story of someone waking up on the ship. They were a low-level maintenance person in the very low levels of the ship, trying to figure out what was going on while telling the story of people reaching the shore and dealing with a new civilization. And those two stories were in parallel and then collide over like a 3-4 season span. So it was I think that we pitched it to a few networks, and anyway, I mean, there's a whole website about fans that want a sequel to Pandorum. There's definitely a fan base for it. There's people that would love to see a series, or there was talk of a lower budget sequel to do these really small, gritty stories that are in the Pandorum universe but tell different tales, because they had the same kind of success with Death Race. If you remember, Jason Statham did the original, and then they did three or four lower budget sequels. So that were just kind of small, grittier, more independent style films. So I talked to them about doing that, and I was actually pitched an idea to direct a really low budget tale, more of a horror story that took place in that universe. So anyway, we've talked about it. You know, who knows? Who knows what could happen down the road? Maybe it would come to life again. I'm not sure.
I mean,
Fingers
yeah,
crossed.
these days, like with like reboots and like just like
Snyder
reusing
cuts.
IP, exactly. Yeah, yeah, we need the Travis cut of Pandorum.
Get us the Milloy cut, the Milloy sequel.
6 hours, and it's just Ben Foster and that creepy little girl hanging out.
Get some messianic imagery in there. You're golden.
Right.
Love it. No, yeah, that's cool. And I think I was thinking like a series would be good too, just because of how fleshed out the world is. But there's something about these days, especially like when we talk about technology advancing, the B movie genre isn't like it was in the 80s or 90s. It's definitely its own force to be reckoned with, where cool stuff can happen. Like I could see like a Frank Grillo type character showing up in the Pandorum universe.
Yeah, oh, man, absolutely. Yeah, that would be a lot of fun. I mean, when you think about it, like even Joker was kind of this gritty little indie story within that universe, which worked out, so well to do something different. Then you can take bolder choices and it'd be great. It'd be great to revisit that world for sure.
I hope you do. It's a cool world.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
I was also thinking a little bit too about just pivoting a little bit to Infinity Chamber, which if I know might be lesser known than Pandorum. So if anyone listening hasn't seen it, go check out Infinity Chamber.
Yeah,
for sure.
check it. It's great. I'm a huge fan of that movie.
Really cool movie.
List, yeah.
Thanks,
one of the through lines I thought between Pandorum and that movie I thought was interesting is sort of like this like mental uncertainty, or like kind of questioning one's own sanity or grasp on reality. Like the two movies like tonally are very different. They're both sci-fi, but they're different corners of sci-fi, very strikingly different corners of sci-fi, but that was a consistency. And I was wondering if that's something that you intended to touch on in both of those movies, or something that just kind of came through, or something you're interested in exploring more of.
Yeah, I think it's something that just kind of came through. It's just, I think that element just kind of interests me. So I think it just kind of seeps in. It's really interesting in just looking at those two movies. I mean, they're in my world, they are complete opposite ends of the spectrum. I mean, Pandorum was a good size, but was a big budget to me. Like that's like, whoa, like $33 million. Like that's huge. And then Infinity Chamber was $100,000 movie. So, but all of the elements are the same, of trying to create a project and write a project and produce a project and all that kind of stuff. And it was interesting because both movies were on Netflix at the same time, and they were in the same category, which I thought was so ironic and unique. And the fact that another little Easter egg is that Frank in Infinity Chamber wears Bauer's uniform. From Pandorum.
Really?
Yeah, we didn't have the budget. We didn't have a budget for much costuming, and I had that uniform. They gave it to me after the movie was finished, and it was just sitting in my house. And Chris, the actor from Infinity Chamber, came over. We were talking about what kind of suit we would get him, and he was like, "What about that?" I was like, "Well, okay, you want to try it on?" He's like, "Yeah." So he's like, "This is cool." And I was like, "Well, somebody really talented built that." So yeah, we ended up using his suit in both, which is weird, the same suit in both movies. So the movies they definitely have, like you said, they have a couple different weird connections about isolation and questioning your sanity, or questioning the world around you. So those things definitely run through both.
Dude, bring on the Milloy verse. That's what I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for all your support with that movie, Joe. I really appreciate it, and you as well, Cole. You guys, you were the first person to really give us some social media support when that film came, when we were trying to get that film out. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm glad it got to be something. It was really cool to see.
Hi.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, loved it.
Thanks.
We are. I told you guys we'd stick to an hour. We're already past an hour. Sorry. It's such a good conversation, though.
I know. Do we get into movies, man. We could go all week. I'm telling you.
Oh my God.
Yeah, lots of easy rabbit holes to go down.
Yeah, I know.
And trust me, I'm a leaf blower. If you pull that movie chain, I'll start spewing air in your face like you won't believe.
So we do have like a kind of a final sort of segment that we tend to do on our podcast just to sort of like wrap it up. We call it What the Fandom, where we just kind of go around and ask like, what's something that you're like really into now? Like maybe you're watching a show, you're like, oh, I think, more people should watch that show or something like that. Or what project that you're working on now that you're really excited to plug or something like that you just want to share with the people listening. So something like that, something that you're just really into at the moment. We kind of always all go around and share something. So if you have something in mind, we could give you a moment to think too. I know Khalid and I usually try to pre-plan these as much as possible with what we're going to come to the table with.
Emphasis on try.
Try, yeah. We'll give you guys a moment to think, and then Khalid and I will go. Are you ready, Khalid?
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, so I'll do like a little sub What the Fandom for the new superhero show on Amazon. It's by Seth Rogen, Evan Goldberg, and Robert Kirkman, who made the comic book too. It's called Invincible. They dropped the first 3 episodes as of this recording, and I went into it like, okay, we'll see what this is about. I'm kind of burnt out on superheroes like everybody else, and it is great. They do like the animation style like from the DC animated universe, which is my gold standard for the animated superhero movies. But on top of that, it's a really cool, like, character-driven story. There's a lot of surprising twists and turns to it, and I'm just very interested to see where it goes. So if you're like me and a little burnt out on superhero stuff, but you still have, like, a little space left, this definitely warrants some time, some investment. So my actual What the Fandom, I'm taking it way back. It's going to be the movie Blue Collar, starring Harvey Keitel. Actually, we brought him up in this discussion. Mm-hmm. It's Harvey Keitel, Richard Pryor, and Yaphet Kotto, who recently passed. I had never seen anything with Yaphet Kotto in it, at least that I know of. So this is my big introduction to him. And this movie's amazing. Without giving too much away, it's about these factory workers who decide to rob their union and all of the craziness that unfolds from there. But it's really just like a awesome, like, critical look at capitalism, like, during a time like way before the discussion now, the Twitter discussions about like what's bad about capitalism or how it might be failing us. So I really recommend it for anybody who's like interested in that kind of a subject and wants to see a more dramatic and serious role for an actor like Richard Pryor. It's fantastic. I can't stop thinking about it.
It's really funny that you're bringing that movie up because to me it's a film I've actually never seen, and it always pops up in a book I'm reading or something where someone mentions it. And I love Richard Pryor, of course, and Keitel, and but I've never seen it. But it's pretty interesting, tumultuous production that movie had, as far as I know.
Really, I hadn't heard anything about it.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. Nothing that I could. It would all be probably paraphrasing at best if I said it. But you should look it up. There was some tension on that set, and it's made me all the more curious to watch it. Actually.
No, I definitely recommend it. The thing is, like, Pryor plays it all straight, but like. He's still put into like some really hilarious scenarios, which are awesome. So I don't know, like I there's just only so much I can say without spoiling it, and I really want people to just go in like with like not knowing very much about it at all.
Wow. Okay. Right on.
Awesome.
Seconded. It's a cool movie. Yeah, I've heard about the production challenges with some of the actors on set too. It is an interesting story. Khalid, check it out. And on that note too, like that being your first Yaphet Kotto movie, we definitely got to do a Yaphet Kotto watch party sometime. Some of these other roles. Great actor, so many good roles.
Yeah. I'm into it. Also, did they ever do anything on SNL like Yaphet Frodo or anything? It's just right there.
You're right.
Like, I just want it to be like The Shire, and then all of a sudden this like 6'4" black guy is there.
That's right.
I don't know how true this is, but I heard that character on the Orville, the little sludge guy that Norm Macdonald voices, Yaphet, it was named for Yaphet Kotto.
There's how many Yaphets could it be named after? I'm gonna guess that's true.
Yeah,
it's certainly the only Yaphet I'm aware of.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'll do my quick what the fandom next, and then we'll move on to you guys. But so mine one, I just have a short one this week, and it's one that Khalid and I have talked about in the past on another podcast. But I wanted to plug just once more the animated series on Netflix, Kipo and the Age of Wonder Beasts, and it's so good. But it just like. I was watching it for a while and I kind of dropped off, but I'm watching it again. And this morning I watched it with my daughter, who's like 2.5 years old. So she's really into like Mickey Mouse Clubhouse and those things. And so this is a little bit above her, but I was like, let's watch a show, like one of Daddy's shows. And she's like, oh, Daddy shows. And was really excited about that. So she sat and watched it and was really into it. Like, I don't think she of course didn't follow it. She's 2.5, but like when there was the frog person on, she pointed to that and said, Daddy. So I guess I'm a frog person to her, which is fun. She was into the imagery and the colors and the music. She seemed to be interested in, just like, I was trying to like narrate it to her, like what was going on, but it just was such a fun moment. That makes me really excited. Like it was this first like step of like getting her into like a little bit of my fandoms. And so I was just really excited. And it's fun that's the show. It's such a cool show. Highly recommended for monster fans or animation fans or just fans of good stories in general. Great show.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So how about you guys, Cole or Travis? Who wants to go first?
Cole, you got something?
Yeah. So I have to be honest, I've been terrible this year. First off, and this is another thing Travis and I were talking about earlier today. I'm terrible at watching shows. I'm such a movie guy that I'll be like, that was great, but I'll get back to it. And so I'm not great at watching shows. But let's see, something that I fanned out over lately. I recently got in, back to the Blu-ray thing, is I've gotten into finding the movie collections of things, whether it's the original Rambo movies and you're like, I haven't watched those in forever, I'm going to get those, or the original Planet of the Apes, or Hammer horror collection sets. They released a great Hammer collection set back in November that's 20 of their more obscure movies, and that's been really awesome. I did see this, and this is not monster related at all. My neighbor lent me this Polish film called Powidoki, I think is how you pronounce it. And it's, excuse me, it's, I think it means after image. And it's just a very unique period piece about an artist sort of being silenced and forced out by a Stalinist regime. And it was very good. And so that's been on my mind a lot lately. I'm not a huge comic book graphic novel guy, but there's a really, really fun one for monster lovers. But there's, he's an actor also, the guy that wrote it, David Dasmalchian. He's, let's see, he's in like Prisoners. He was in The Dark Knight. He's in the new Suicide Squad movie coming out. He's a great actor. But I came across this graphic novel he did called Count Crowley, Reluctant Midnight Monster Hunter. And again, not being a huge graphic novel comic book guy, I ate this thing up, man. Like I loved it. It's really worth checking out, and the art is beautiful. And it's just a really fun monster sort of graphic novel adventure piece. But and I've been geeking out over Errol Flynn's autobiography, My Wicked Wicked Ways. That's really been what I've been really sort of fanning out over.
Cool.
And you said that you were saying that crazy life story with that guy.
Oh my God. Yes.
Wow.
Okay, I always get Errol Flynn and Errol Morris mixed up. Which one is Flynn again?
Errol Flynn, Robin Hood is probably the most classic thing that you would reckon. He was like the classic adventures of Robin Hood.
Okay.
And let's see, he was also in why am I blanking? It's not.
He's like the swashbuckling. Didn't he do a bunch of pirate films?
He did Captain Blood was another one. That was actually what put him on the map. And he did a number. Definitely, he was definitely a swashbuckler by definition. Which at the time he didn't love that. Apparently,
right.
But I'm telling you, his life story, and apparently because it was so salacious when he released it, because it came out, I think, like a month or so before he died. that they had to go back and re-edit it because he told a lot of secrets that a lot of people didn't want to hear. So if you're going to get that book, find the unabridged one. Find the one that doesn't have that stuff cut out.
Oh, man. That's awesome. Well, I have to say that for me, like, yeah, I haven't really been watching anything recent. I went down kind of this rabbit hole. I've been watching all these Peter Hyams films. I don't know if you guys know. He's like one of my favorite directors, but I've been watching all of his stuff. He did these great films in the 70s and 80s. He did Capricorn 1. He did Outland. He did Star Chamber. So he had these great – he just had such a great – the cinematography, just the whole aesthetic to his films, I just absolutely adore. And then he did some kind of weird stuff in the 90s, but his 70s and 80s work, I've just been like just glued. I've been watching his movies like every night. So that's been my latest fandom thing.
Yeah, those are some good movies. I've seen a few of those too. Yeah,
just the other thing is that I'm gearing up to do another super low budget sci-fi film that we're planning on doing, which is I'm just having a lot of fun with it. It's a very low, no budget type thing, very guerrilla style, but it's an homage to the 80s apocalyptic movies. So it's just it's been a lot of fun just developing and figuring out logistically how we're going to do it, how we're going to shoot it. But it's in a nutshell, it's the world. It's the apocalypse. The world has come to an end. There's a few lone survivors, and this young girl is trying to find the entrance to what she believes is this mythical underground city that the elite built right before the world fell. And that the wealthiest people in the world built this place in the desert where they could survive. And she's trying to find the entrance. And she does, but the one thing guarding it is a robotic soldier who doesn't know the world has come to an end, who won't give her entry. So it's this very weird, quirky little story between these two characters, one human, one machine, trying to gain entry to this mythical paradise at the end of times. So,
can I buy my ticket now or no?
Yes, advanced tickets are now available. No. It's one of those passion projects that'll probably take quite a while to find its feet. But who knows? So we'll see.
Do you have a title at this point?
Yeah, right now I went with this very 80s. It's called Echo Zero Run, which I thought it was just kind of funny because it was like that's just like one of those ridiculous 80s sci-fi titles. So that's the working title at the moment.
I like it.
It's better than the title Solar Babies. No offense to anybody who worked on that movie.
Wasn't that Jason Patric?
Oh, I don't even remember at this point.
I think he was in that actually, but anyway. So yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, super awesome, guys. Thanks again for coming on the show and join us and just good conversation, cool stories. We really appreciate it.
Oh man, yeah, it was a pleasure, you guys. And like I said, I could go all night. Right, we'll discuss the political innuendos in, Aliens or whatever.
Yes. Love it.
No, it's been fun, guys. Thanks for having us on here.
Yeah, and the invitation's open for coming back whenever you want. So if you ever have a monster movie you really want to discuss, shoot me an email and we'll set something up for sure.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Absolutely.
Anytime.
Yeah, guys, thank you so much for listening to this awesome discussion. Travis and Cole, you were amazing to talk to. A lot of cool stories in there. So thank you again from me and Joe. As far as our next episode, I believe that we'll be discussing the Japanese manga Uzumaki. So it's going to be out. It's going to be a few weeks before we record that. So go ahead and get yourself a copy of it. It's really great so far from my reading without spoiling it. But yeah, check that out. And until next time, creep it easy.